Okay, so get this right. This 17-year-old, Ivory Green, vanishes. Gone. From Utica, New York,
Yeah,
19 years ago.
a long time.
Which means she's been missing longer than she was alive.
That's right,
That's
yeah.
crazy,
That's
right?
a tough one.
I'm going to dive into that today, try to figure out what happened.
A case that has haunted people in the community and investigators for
For a
years.
long time. So March 6th, 2004, a Friday night. Just a regular Friday night.
Right.
We've got all these reports and interviews that paint a picture of Ivory's mother, Charlotte Greensmith. She's cooking dinner, waiting for her daughter to come home. She was out with friends, just spending time with friends.
Typical Friday night.
Typical. Yeah.
Yeah, sources describe the meal, chicken, barbecue ribs, potato salad. You know, it sounds like a typical family dinner, but it was a night that turned tragic.
Yeah. So around 7:45 p.m., Charlotte gets a phone call from Ivory. She's walking home. They're talking about dinner. Just typical teenage
It's
stuff.
just a normal conversation.
But here's the thing. That's the last time Charlotte ever heard from her daughter.
Wow. That phone call, that brief exchange became the last connection between mother and daughter.
I know. So hours go by. The food goes cold. Ivory doesn't show up. And Charlotte, she knows. Like, this isn't like Ivory. Ivory would always let her mom know, like, where she was
Keep her informed.
to keep her informed.
Right.
So where could she be?
Yeah. The question that's lingered, for years now, and the initial response to Ivory's disappearance kind of adds another layer of complexity to this story, which is already so sad.
Right. And that's where we see these conflicting accounts. So Charlotte insists she reported Ivory missing right away.
Okay.
But official police records, they show a missing person report wasn't filed for, like, 10 days. March 16th.
Wow, that delay, whether it was a miscommunication or a procedural error, those 10 days, I mean, those could have been crucial.
Absolutely. I mean, what could have been done differently, right,
Yeah.
in those early hours and days?
Absolutely. And this initial focus on Ivory's supposed history of running away, which Charlotte completely denies, further complicates things.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And adding to that, I mean, this was 2004.
Right.
So investigators didn't have all the technology, the tools we have now. All the surveillance cameras everywhere, cell phone data, like it was a whole different world.
Right. It's wild to think, how technology's changed, how it might have impacted the case if it had happened today. But even then, even with those limitations, investigators started finding things out and, whispers became leads.
And those whispers led to a group that Ivory hung out with. A lot of sources called them a tough crowd, particularly two of her cousins, Benjamin Reed, they called him Benji,
Okay.
and Plummer Reed,
Yeah.
both already known to the police.
Right. Yeah, their names kept coming up in connection with Ivory.
Yeah.
Benji had a history of violence, and Plummer, he had his own issues with the law.
Right. And then April 29th, 2004, just weeks after Ivory disappears, the case takes a crazy turn.
This is where it really escalates. We're talking about the shooting of Plummer Reed
Wow.
by his own cousin, Benji.
Shot by his own cousin.
Yeah.
Okay, so the details are wild.
Yeah.
Plummer's hanging out in, like, this broken-down car in his great-aunt's backyard.
Okay.
Benji just walks up, gets in the car, and without any warning, just shoots Plummer, like, multiple times in the head.
It was a brutal attack, and it seemed totally unprovoked. Investigators were left trying to figure out why, what could have caused that kind of violence between them.
And this is where it gets really strange and pretty sad, too. Charlotte says she was on the phone with Plummer at the exact moment he got shot. And she says that he was about to tell her what happened to Ivory.
Oh, wow. Charlotte describes hearing this loud pop on the call, which she thought was, maybe a car backfiring.
Right.
But we know now, tragically, that it was gunshot.
Yeah. Imagine, like, you're so close to finding out what happened to your daughter.
Yeah.
And then you hear that.
It's hard to even imagine what she must have been feeling. It's a crucial detail, but it's incredibly hard to verify. And sadly, Plummer, he survived the shooting, but he denied being on the phone with Charlotte and claimed he didn't remember anything.
Wow. So you have Charlotte's account, which, obviously she's going through so much.
Of course.
And then Plummer denying it. It's like this he said, she said with incredibly high stakes.
Yeah. And this is where that code of silence that's so strong in Utica starts to affect the whole investigation,
Yes, this no-snitching culture, a huge obstacle. People are scared to talk, even if they know something. It creates this, atmosphere of distrust and fear.
Yeah.
Makes it so hard to figure out what really happened.
It's like, imagine putting a puzzle together that most of the pieces are hidden. That's the challenge they're facing. Leads disappear. Witnesses won't talk. And the investigation, it just hits a wall. And you're talking about stealing from a major drug trafficking operation like Brick Money. That's a bold move. And this leads to this theory that maybe Ivory's disappearance was retaliation, like they were going after Brendel.
So they took this 17-year-old girl, who doesn't seem to have anything to do with any of this,
Right.
as revenge.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
It is, but, looking at everything, there are some things that don't quite add up with that theory.
Okay.
If Brick Money wanted to, hurt Brendel, really make him suffer,
Right.
wouldn't they target someone closer, like a sibling or a parent, someone whose loss would be,
Well, they hurt him.
yeah, really devastating.
That makes you wonder.
Yeah. And remember that code of silence.
Right.
That really impacted this part of the investigation, too. A lot of the information about Brick Money came from informants.
And they weren't the most reliable, were they?
Not really. A lot of what they said turned out to be unreliable or maybe even intentionally misleading. Tough to get a clear picture, when everyone's hiding things and manipulating.
Right. So we have these rumors and whispers,
Yeah.
but it's all hidden behind this wall of secrecy and lies.
Mm.
Must have been incredibly frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. For the investigators, trying to figure out what's real and what's not, what's a real lead and what's a dead end, and you have all these hidden agendas everywhere. No wonder this case went cold.
Yeah. But they never really stopped looking, right?
No, not really. They chased every lead they could. They did interviews. They searched lakes and rivers. They even looked in New York City. And through it all, Charlotte never gave up.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Her strength and determination after all these years, keep fighting for her daughter, really shows the power of a mother's love.
Yeah. And imagine, the emotional toll. Every year that goes by, every dead end, every little bit of hope that fades away. It's unimaginable, really.
Yeah. But sometimes there's a little bit of light, even in the darkest times, right? And in this case, that light comes from DNA evidence.
Yes. The sources say that during the investigation, the police collected evidence that could have DNA on it. And it's being held securely in the Utica Police Department property room.
So they're saying they have DNA evidence, but they're not saying what kind, where they got it, or what the results are.
Right. They're not sharing any details, which makes sense, They don't want to mess up the investigation or tip anyone off who might be involved. It's a tough balance to strike.
I get it. But still, knowing there's DNA evidence, that has to give some hope, right? Maybe there's still a chance for a breakthrough even now.
Oh, absolutely. It shows that even with cold cases, technology and science can still find new leads, open up new possibilities.
And they have Charlotte's DNA too, right?
Right.
So if they ever find anything, they can see if it's Ivory's.
Yeah, that's key. Being able to compare the DNA directly could speed things up. Maybe provide some answers and hopefully bring some closure for Charlotte. Even in the face of tragedy, there's always a chance for answers, for justice, for peace.
It's amazing, after all this time, the case is still open.
Yeah.
They're still actively investigating. Says a lot about how dedicated the police are to finding out what happened to Ivory, to getting justice for her and her family.
Yeah, the Utica Police Department, especially Lieutenant Cifinelli, they've been working hard trying to find the truth. They haven't given up. They're still chasing leads.
And they've said, they need the public's help.
Right.
To really solve this case. They're asking anyone who knows anything to come forward.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a tiny piece of information.
Yeah. It's like we talked about, that code of silence. It's been a big problem. People are scared to talk. Maybe they're loyal or they don't trust the police. But, sometimes it's just a small thing, something someone heard years ago and didn't think was important, that ends up being the key.
Yeah. You just never know what could unlock the truth.
Right.
Maybe it's something you saw. Or something you heard back in 2004.
Exactly, yeah. And don't forget, you can always call Mohawk Valley Crime Stoppers. You can give them information without giving your name.
That's a good point.
It's it's a way to do the right thing, maybe help a grieving mother find some peace, and make sure whoever did this to Ivory is held accountable.
So we've spent all this time diving deep into Ivory Green's disappearance, and we have more questions than answers. But one thing's for sure. This case is not closed. There's still hope.
Yeah.
Hope for justice, hope for bringing Ivory home.
And that's where you come in, listeners. Think back to 2004. Were you in Utica? Did you hear anything about Ivory? No detail is too small. Maybe you saw something that seemed weird or overheard a conversation or noticed someone acting strange. It's easy to dismiss something from that long ago as just gossip. But in a case like this, where everyone's so quiet, any little piece of information could be important.
If you know anything, anything at all, even if you think it doesn't matter, contact the Utica Police Department or Mohawk Valley Crime Stoppers. What if you're the one with the missing piece? What if you could help bring peace to Charlotte?
Right.
What if you could help bring Ivory home? Don't underestimate how important even the smallest thing could be. Even sharing it anonymously, it could be the breakthrough the police need. This deep dive has been a journey.
Yeah.
We've seen what happens when a whole community stays silent. We've seen how strong a mother's love can be. And we've seen that there's always hope. Hope that the truth will come out. So if you know something, say something. For Ivory, for Charlotte, for justice.